In my northern New Jersey Jewish family of origin, Passover was a big deal. My mother cooked for days. The Seder table was laden with our best china, silverware, glassware, tablecloth, and napkins. As the younger of 2 children, I sang the Manishtana, the 4 questions asked and answered during the Seder. My contribution was met with beaming smiles and appreciative comments, after which Grandpa would always say, "Now I will answer your questions." Then he would daven, pray, completely in Hebrew, for what seemed like an eternity. "But Grandpa," I protested every year, "I was not able to understand your answers to my questions." Passover is traditionally a joyful holiday, telling a story of resilience, redemption, and renewal. We were slaves in the land of Egypt. We were set free with the help of the Almighty. We made our way through the wilderness to the promised land. It is a rich story of liberation, one that can be interpreted on many levels. I've always enjoyed opportunities to bring awareness of Judaism's richness to UUSM. Like the Seders of my childhood, the community Passover Seders we enjoyed together, often with 50 to 75 celebrants, were also big deals to me. The pandemic abruptly interrupted that tradition, but I hope we will revive it once the renovation of our social hall and kitchen is complete. When we tell the story of the Israelites' escape from bondage in Egypt, we are urged to experience and explore what it means to escape from our own personal forms of bondage. In thinking about Passover this year, I found myself facing some new questions I had not previously considered. Let me explain. As in days of old, conflict in the Middle East between Jews and Arabs flared again very recently, starting with the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas, an Arab terrorist group bent on destruction and killing. Israel had to respond to the October 7th attack, but the manner of that response has caused unfathomable destruction, suffering, and death for far too many innocent people. Other actors have been drawn into the conflict, and anti-Semitic incidents are escalating, especially here in the U.S. A related question I've been wrestling with this year has to do with the Passover story itself. When Pharaoh refused Moses' request to let my people go, a series of plagues was visited upon the Egyptian people. The terrible 10th plague, the killing of the firstborn in Egyptian families, convinced Pharaoh to free the Israelites. But then he changed his mind. It is said that God saved the fleeing Israelites, but drowned the Egyptians giving chase. Why would a loving God inflict such terrible harm upon any group of people? The Old Testament is replete with such tales of bloody retribution. Many religious leaders have pointed out that an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth inevitably leaves everyone blind and toothless. Alas, in what Israel has been doing following October 7th, we can see that the response to conflict is still bloody retribution. Our congregational theme this month is the gift of interdependence. The 7th principle points to our relationship and responsibility toward the earth and all its inhabitants. We humans often separate ourselves, not only from one another, but also from all other beings, and perhaps from creation itself. When we see ourselves as separate, we fail to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of all life. And when we separate ourselves from creation, we invite existential danger. Modern day threats such as extreme weather, insect infestations, livestock illnesses are eerily similar to some of the plagues in the Passover story. So this year, my personal Passover experience has me praying we find ways to escape from our modern-day bondage, working together to move us forward toward a better future. To fight for freedom, not just for ourselves, but for all who are enslaved or imprisoned. To disavow retribution, recognizing that it cannot resolve conflict. To turn our swords and our guns and our bombs into plowshares so that all can finally live in peace and unafraid. To recognize and embrace our interdependence, not only with all living beings, but also with all of creation. Passover Seders usually end with the phrase, "Next year in Jerusalem," a yearning to return to the Jewish homeland. I will end this Passover reflection by saying, next year in our beautifully renovated social hall. May it be so.